Hey everybody, how are you today? I am Rachel Chamness at Sound Waves Heal. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. I'm also going live now in 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions, which up here, this is my Facebook group. Today I wanted to talk about breaking the cycle of attachment. So this is not about how to remove an attachment because that's what I teach in a higher level psychic Reiki healing course. But if you're already doing this work and your clients are having trouble releasing it, or you're having trouble with constant interference and shadow work and entities, then I want to talk about that because it's important. Because, first of all, it's not normal to have them all the time, but there's probably a few things that you might be doing that could be part of the problem. Welcome to 5D Channels and Chats with Rachel Chamness. As a shamanic channel and mentor, I'll be sharing wisdom and healing from higher dimensions through channeling beings of light. You will also hear liquid Reiki shamanic sound healing, channels between intuitives, and discussion on higher dimensional healing and channeling. You'll find links and more in the show notes, so be sure to check them. You can find me at soundwavesheal.com and my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions. Today's podcast comes from my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions, where I come on live every Thursday. Let's talk about entities and attachments. If you don't know what this is, then this is when you get some lower vibrational something stuck into your field and it causes you to not be yourself. And it can be a real problem. And this is the kind of thing that people fear if they're going to do some sort of like trance channeling or channeling. How will I know if it's a high vibrational being or low vibrational being? Hopefully, when you take a course, you will learn that. There is a way to tell. One thing you can do is if you have a live course with a trusted person, like the way that I teach trance channeling, you're going to see what is right over and over again, and you'll be able to recognize it as well. Okay, so if you have clients who have difficulty releasing attachments, or you're finding that you just keep getting attachments over and over, entities in the field, if you don't know what that is, I have a blog post about entities in the field, what are entities, that sort of thing. But we're talking about, people call them demons or shadow or whatever. They could be things that you've created with your own emotions, or they could be something you picked up from someone. You could get them from like portals in your home or low vibrational, all kinds of things. First, I just want to say it's totally normal for this to happen. It's okay if it happens. If it keeps happening over and over, and it's like you're clear, but then 10 minutes later you're not, like a professional, a really good professional clears you, the next day they're back, that's not normal. If you get one every couple of weeks because you do a lot of work on people or you go through a lot of places, then that's more of a sign that you need to upgrade your field and do some inner work. You might need to do some shadow work. You might just need to upgrade all your security, which is like a thing, you know? So you should always be upgrading it. Reiki is a great way to upgrade your whole security field and your protection. And that's a really important component of what I teach in trance channeling and channeling. And it is also just really important in general. So when you learn channeling, when you learn trance channeling, when you learn Reiki and all of that, when I teach higher levels of trance channeling, I teach higher levels of protection too. Do we need protection? No, we don't need protection as long as you are really, really good at releasing emotions. Now, if you're human, that might not be the case. Now, if you're a really, really advanced learner, then you're likely never going to get attachments, or hardly ever, because you understand about how to get them. So let's talk about this. Sometimes it can just signal change in your field. You need to upgrade protections and systems or adjust to a new frequency if you're getting them more often than normal. That's a thing that happens. That happened to me back in 2020, and I had to learn how to overcome it. And now I teach everything that I learned too. So how do you break the cycle? Okay, so first let's talk what causes attachments. First of all, emotions cause attachments and other things in the field. When you have an emotion that's stuck in your field, that allows other things to get stuck in your field. When you remove that emotion, then that thing cannot be stuck in your field anymore. So sometimes it's just basic releasing emotions that gets rid of them. Of course, a Reiki master practitioner should know how to release attachments. I do teach it in my psychic Reiki healing master teacher course, which teaches you every way to release attachments. But what keeps it in there is the emotion. Sometimes if you can find out why it's happening, then you can release it just by understanding. So sometimes they won't leave until they have given you the message and you truly understand it. So sometimes if a practitioner is releasing all these entities but not telling you why you have them, then of course you're going to get them back because you haven't learned the lesson. Why would your spirit guides let you get attachments? Because you need to learn something. Maybe the lesson is you have to change your field and upgrade or ground deeper. Maybe you need to adjust to a new frequency. Maybe you need a higher level of protection, like a higher level of Reiki or something like that. Or maybe you need a spiritual session. How many times do I get people who come in for an emergency session for healing and clearing because they have an attachment they can't get rid of? And then I clear it, but the reason it was there opens up this whole thing that just needs to be healed and cleared, and they get a message that changes everything. And they wouldn't have done that if they didn't have to get that lesson. Sometimes have to get that session. Sometimes people, their spirit guides force them to get a session because they need to know something by giving them something that they just can't get out of the field. That happens all the time. So whenever someone gets a session and then they're like, oh, I don't need it anymore, whatever happened, then I'm like, yes, you do. Why would your spirit guides tell you to get this session or force you into it? Then you did it, and then 5 minutes later you don't need it anymore. It's because you needed the session for another reason. All right, but that's a whole other thing. So emotions that cause attachments are any lower vibrational emotions: fear, rage, revenge, hatred of all kinds. Even if you hate the bad guys, that's still hatred. Even if you get all worked up about that, that's gonna lower your vibration. You have to work through your emotions instead. And of course, I have a wonderful resource for that. It is free. I give a lot of free stuff because I really want to help you guys in every way, no matter how much money you have. Shadow work. This is the blog post, but you can go to my blog, soundwavesheal.com/blog, and just search shadow work or just search shadow. So yes, you have to do shadow work with a spiritual helper maybe. We all need each other. Lightworkers need each other. Okay. What else causes attachment? Pharma. Do you take medication? Do you take serious medications? Do you take pain medications? Do you use a lot of pharmaceuticals, legal or illegal? And how do you use them? I understand people like to use cannabis. Are you using it to escape something? You know what I mean? I don't let anybody use anything when they take my class. I have to really ask Spirit a lot of questions if they take anything that could lower their vibration. It's very hard. If you have constant pain and you're taking some sort of opiate, then you really can't do that and take higher levels of shamanic work or channeling, because that's going to keep you from being clear. And taking any kind of pharmaceutical, anything, can give you all kinds of psychic implants and psychic attachments. That's a big problem. And I work with people to help get them off, even if it's something that they have to take. And for some people, some of them are okay. It depends. I really have to dig deep to make sure it's okay before I let them in a really higher level class, because it's just for their own safety. Another thing is protection. I mean, how much protection do you have? Are you trying to channel, but you don't have any basic protection? You're not Reiki 1, that can cause things to come into the field too. And again, emotions. Another thing is ego. So here's a big thing about ego. You really have to come to a place where you understand first that you are part of God. You are part of the One. You're part of Source. Everyone is an important and beautiful part of Source. Even the bad guys. They are too. You know what I mean? They are too. And just because you've stepped into your gifts doesn't mean that you're suddenly important. It doesn't mean that, now people are going to respect you, or now you're going to do something so amazing, or, all that stuff. That's how entities get you too. And that's how they trick you. You have to be really clear that you're just the channel. You're not suddenly more important or more respected. It's only that self-love and understanding spiritual concepts of who we are that can really help you step outside of your ego and understand that you're just a channel. You're just doing this, and anybody can do it. Anybody can do it who has the heart and who can get themselves to a place where they can stay very clear. Yeah, and Mel says, the irony is I'm on anxiety meds because the entity attachment. Oh, yeah. See, sometimes people are on all kinds of medications, not because they're really having a problem with bipolar or anxiety, but because they're an empath or they're psychic, they don't know who they're hearing and who's real and who's not, or whose emotions are whose. And so that's another thing that needs to be worked out before you can do these higher levels. More about the ego is that things like false guides can get you. And if you're not savvy enough to be like, hey, this isn't real, a spirit guide wouldn't say that. They wouldn't be bugging me to go find my true love. Anything about a twin flame that's no. If you have a spirit guide talking about a twin flame, you need to look at that a little more closely, because twin flames, they're not always like something that's great here. And it can often be a false thing from an entity. So be really careful about that. A false spirit guide. What are they saying? Are they building you up, or are they bugging you about something weird? Be careful with that. But you can see that. I had this happen to one of my students. They got a false guide and they recognized it. They knew something was wrong. Something is wrong. They reached out to me, and then they reached out to another student, and they worked together and they released it. And that's another thing, because what do you do when you have an entity? You can remove it yourself if you have modalities like psychic Reiki healing, or if you have those modalities and you have classmates and other people that you work with, you can just barter, because it's easier for someone else to remove that entity than you to do it. So if you know an advanced practitioner friend who understands that you can't just remove it, you have to find out why they're there, and you have to get the lesson. That's the most important thing. You've got to know that. This is the one thing I need you to take home with you. You've got to get the lesson. You have to find out why it's there. If you do not find out why it's there, you will get another one of the same kind almost immediately. That is the main thing. You've got to know why it's there. Yeah. I see your questions. Let me go. I have so much more to say. So let me say it a little more. We're going to go a little long today. Okay. So you can remove it yourself. You can have a session with someone who understands that, or you can have an advanced practitioner friend to barter with. Okay. And what's the root cause? You got to know. What is the root cause? You can ask the entity. For those of you who are master practitioners, master teachers, or whatever you use that's a master level, you say, why are you here? What are you here for? So I used to remove attachments and entities totally like the opposite of everything I'm saying here. I'd be like, F you, get out of my client. You're the worst thing. Get out of here. I'm transmuting you. Like, don't even look at me, And then one day I had a beautiful client who brought this beautiful channel that we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to transmute with love. And it really touched me. It really did. And I have chills just talking about it. I learned so much from my clients too. And I changed it. And I started saying, hey, it's time for you to go. You have to go. And then I learned, you got to ask them. So I said, hey, why are you here? And they will tell you. And then they'll go so easily. It's amazing. I had a client once who was completely taken over. She was not even talking. It was the entity talking through her to me. It was the worst possible thing that can possibly happen to someone. But she was safe because she was with me. But and she was already a high level practitioner. So she allowed herself to have it removed, and that's where it came through the worst. And it started talking to me. And then finally I was just like, why are you here? And it told me why. And then it just went. After I had, done so many things, and I was able to bring it to the other side to be transmuted. You're always transmuting everything. You're not sending it back to the sender. You're transmuting. It's important. And that's other things that we learn during all this time. Okay, so pharmaceuticals, spiraling, anytime you're spiraling, that your vibration's getting lower and lower, stop and do some shadow work. Stop that. Use the switch word, stop. That's a switch word that will help stop the spiraling. You can learn more about switch words on my blog. It's just like a affirmation word. And try, what am I feeling? What do I need to do? Get your pendulum out. To use a pendulum, you should have some sort of way to talk to your spirit guides and helpers. What am I feeling? And then do the shadow work for that. Ho'oponopono, I release that emotion. Can you release that emotion from me? Spirit guides and helpers, you're going to go through all that. I teach all those things, of course, in Tag Lightworkers and in my courses. But things like that. When you remove it from someone else, you got to ask why. And, where is ego involved? There might be some homework for the client or for you, if it's you that's having the problem. You've got to find out what's causing it. Is it ego? Is it emotions? Is it something that you just really need to release that you've held on to for a long time. You know, we have to be releasing all this stuff now if we're going to go to 5D. Sometimes it's 4D interference. Let's talk about this for a minute. The fourth dimensional creatures which rule the corporations and the world, yeah, they're there. They have a purpose. Okay. And I don't want to say, oh, you're a bright light, so they're all attracted to you. But I mean, a little bit it's true, but it doesn't have to be. Please don't say those things. Because one of the big things about this is negative law of attraction. What are you saying? Are you saying in the present tense about having blocks, having problems? If you're talking about that stuff, that's going to repeat. Every time you say it, it's like, oh, she's having the feeling of having this problem. Let's give that problem to her. Oh, she's having this feeling of gratitude that she doesn't have that problem anymore, even if it's not true. And the universe says, let's give her more of that gratitude for not having that problem. See, what's inside is what you're attracting. So it doesn't mean to shadow ban your thoughts. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means you've got to work through your thoughts with shadow work so you can get to the other side. So 4D interference is a thing. You can learn to send them away. If you're Reiki 2, Reiki master teacher, that will definitely help you do that. Yeah. Ashley says, love is the most potent approach you can use with entities. It's not the easiest, but it's the most powerful. I find it even to be easier many times. Yeah, it is very powerful. And of course, she's a master teacher, psychic Reiki healing student. Because so you know what's up, Ashley. So law of attraction, negative words, what you're thinking. We talked about that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Ouija boards. Vows and contracts needing to be revoked and removed in all planes and dimensions. If you've ever used a Ouija board, go find that sucker and burn it. You don't want to use anything like that. I don't recommend that you just willy-nilly use anything to get on a higher plane, any kind of substance. If you want to do a journey with an experienced shaman, I guess that's different, but make sure someone checks your auric field afterwards and don't do it on the regular. You can do all of this. You can get as high as you want with just energy and your own ability. Anybody can with meditation. You don't need all that. And unfortunately, it's so easy to use it to escape, then it's a problem. Anything can be used as an escape. It doesn't even have to be alcohol or pharmaceuticals or whatever substances. It can be sugar or sex, or it can be anything. So you need to find the root cause, ask the entity, understand what happened, what's the lesson. That's how you stop people from the cycle. And there's other things too. And that is, don't talk about the session. Let it go. If you had just had a session and all this stuff was revealed, oh my gosh, they removed this and this, and then there was this specific thing, and it was this past life, and you've got this like list of all the things. You're like, oh my God, look at this list. I can't believe I had all this. And then you're like telling your friends, oh my gosh, what are you feeling right now? You're feeling all this negative stuff and you're calling it back. I've had to tell people who have were constantly calling back the same thing over and over again, went to so many healers. That was the problem, that they were just talking and bringing it back. It does not matter what the entity is. It does not matter what it is. Knowing what it is, it's like knowing every detail of your past life. It keeps you stuck in it. You've got to move past it. We removed it, and this is why, and that's all the information that you need to give your client. That's all the information that you need. Let it go. If someone wants to tell you all the things about, okay, listen and let it go. Don't think about it again. Don't tell your friend. You can say, I got a good clearing and it really made a difference and I feel great. That's a great way to talk about your session. But I had this, oh my gosh, and I had this. And do you know what happened? I had a past life and I can just imagine it right now while I'm telling you about my past life. Whew, that is not a good idea. That kind of thing does keep people stuck. Now, of course, another thing that keeps people stuck is fear. They're still so fearful because they had this experience and it really keeps them stuck in that experience. And it can be a poltergeist too. Do you know what a poltergeist is? It's like where you create something out of fear. Now, I see entities created out of fear all the time, or emotions. And poltergeists can move things, and it's very scary. And yet it can be created out of fear. So sometimes, yeah, like Luana says, attaching to the story creates rumination. Yeah, you just have to release it. You have to believe. If you go to a psychic healer and a psychic healer, if you go to a psychic healer and they totally clear you and you trust them and they told you why, you got the why, you understand the lesson, you have homework going forward, how to keep yourself clear, how to get away from that, then it's time to let all that go and trust. Okay? Don't be looking for, is it back? Is it back? because you can create it like that. And sometimes it takes a great deal more. And sometimes, it's not gone because the practitioner doesn't know how to release it correctly, or they don't know how to find the reason or whatever. And maybe there's a portal in your house. Like there might be more, but you have to trust and then be sensible, like stay out of fear. There's just a line there. It's a little bit of a line, like where is it not totally clear, or am I recreating, or is there something that wasn't cleared? And you should go back. Don't be afraid. Go back to your healer and say, hey, look, this is happening. And people come back and tell me things like that, and I'll look into it. Oh, there was a portal. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Or maybe your session wasn't long enough and I didn't get to it. That's okay. Let's clear it. All right, now it's clear. You're clear. So remember that. Sometimes people are embarrassed to go back. Oh, she's such a nice person. I don't want to tell her it didn't work. You got to go back and tell people, how are all these practitioners going to learn what to do if they're not being told it's not working? And people send me people all the time. It's not working. It's not working. My client, I don't know what to do. Now, sometimes it's just that they're recreating because they're not in a place where they can think clearly and rationally. Sometimes it's beyond your help. And that does happen. I've had clients where I just can't help them because they're just not thinking clearly. Usually it's pharmaceutical interference, lots and lots of medications, like 2 or 3 anxiety medications from different doctors, things like that. I see that. I know that it's probably not something I can help with. And you want to be very open. Okay, this person says this. Let's see if that's happening and make sure it's not in her mind. Like you would never want to be like, oh, that's crazy. Like you want to look and see what's happening here, what's the truth here, and help people see that. And what's not normal is that the entity would be back in a minute, or like 10 minutes, or like the next night, the next day. You should be clear. You shouldn't be having entities constantly. Again, if you're like, every time I go to such and such, I always get an attachment, then that's going to be true now because you're saying that. So again, the things you say, let me see if I went through my whole list and I'll get to questions. And of course, I do teach all this stuff in my psychic Reiki healing courses, and my dimensional channeling course, which is accelerated channeling mastery, which starts in January. After your session is over and you've let it go do something to keep your vibe high, or do shadow work so that you can. And no, that doesn't mean you're never going to get another attachment. You can still get them, but you should be able to clear them, see them immediately, get them cleared immediately. Don't put it off. Don't be like, oh, I have an attachment for the past 2 months. But because they can get really deep, and there can be a point where you can't be helped. I know people who've had attachments for 3 years. I was telling them, you have to release this attachment, and this person didn't want to release it because they were getting some benefit from it, and they didn't want to release it, and now it's too late. And that sucks. You try really hard to help people. You can't help everybody. Okay, ask questions. Let's see. What are the questions? There's a lot here. Okay, Luana says she loves the perspective, the reason for the experience, the lesson. A lot of people are saying so true. Luana says, I used to be so blocked spiritually with prescription meds. Jennifer says, I'm on Zoloft and I'm scheduled for a mediumship course in 2 days. Is that going to interfere? Jennifer, most likely. Did your teacher check you for that? Did he or she ask? Did she check with spirit that's going to be okay? Did she give you some work or something like that? I think you might want to do a session or something like that with your teacher and figure that out, or use your own discernment. Ashley says, again, love is the most potent approach you can use with entities. I love that. Okay, and then Jennifer says, I've always thought that poltergeist activity was just unconscious telekinesis. Yeah, that's interesting. Usually when you get something, like I said, it is a lesson, and you can go into the emotion and you can begin to release your emotions. If you work on yourself, then that's really going to be where you're going to escape this cycle too. It's working on yourself. Many times when I get people that I feel like I can't help because they're constantly opening new portals, inviting it back, it's like they are really used to this feeling of out of control. And it's like people staying in an abusive marriage. It's what they know, and they're scared of what they don't know. So sometimes it's really hard to help people who just don't know how to get out of that. I've had a client before who would just create all kinds of stuff, and she really didn't have any kind of discernment. And, it came down to, it was almost like an addiction to chaos Because if there's no chaos, then she would have to work on herself and she'd have to face things and work through them. And like, I have chills right now. That's the most important thing. You have to work on your problems. You can't just ignore them. You can't just throw them out. You have to work on them and then try to find joy. And of course, you're going to get low. And yes, things will get to you, entities, whatever. And then you just have them cleared. It's just that's what we have to do. You don't get more because you're a bright light. You may get more for the interference because of that. You just need to learn how to deal with all that. It's part of being a light worker is you're always going to be learning more. And like I said in the beginning, if you're getting a lot of things, it could be an up-level challenge where you have to learn. It might mean that your channeling and what you're doing is ahead of your protection. And you need to bring your protection up. And that's why in each level of my trance channeling, I always teach the spiritual protection that goes with what we're learning. And there's a whole thing about, do you need protection? And like I said, it really depends. It depends on your level of vibration all the time. So if you've been a Reiki master for 20 years and you totally know this and you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and you totally got this, then it's going to be harder for entities to get you because you're going to recognize right away, oh, that's not a normal feeling. I know these principles. I know people who never get attachments and didn't even believe in them. Students of mine who are amazing because they're just too humble to get caught in an ego trap and they're too protected with 20 years of Reiki master, things like that, or Reiki level 2 even, Reed says, time doesn't heal, healing heals. But it's so true. And it's so funny how often we as people want something so much in our life or know that we need something like a healing, and then we just put it off. And we say, oh, I'll catch it next time. Oh, I'll do it next month. And Spirit will corral you and force you to do this where things will get so bad that you will have to. And now it's an emergency situation. So an emergency session, you're just getting clear enough, but it's not all the beautiful parts of a normal session where you're getting up leveling and messages from your guides, like beautiful steps to go forward to live your best life in your highest timeline. It's instead, we got to clear all this stuff and you're now behind. You got to work on this stuff. And so I hope that this is helpful. I just felt like I really need to say all these things today. We really have to stay in the light. And it's not easy in this world to do that. But that's really how you break the cycle. Sometimes if you have a client who just is constantly bringing it back and they don't have the discernment and they have some other problems they don't want to deal with, you have to let them go and just say, you need to work on this. If you have a client that only comes for emergency appointments, clear, but never wants to work on themselves, that's kind of a red flag that this person is avoiding things and using emergency problems to keep from having to work on their real stuff. So there's no escape from working on yourself, unfortunately. And those that get farther ahead are those who stay out of their ego, understand they'll always need to work on themselves. You're never fully enlightened, all of that stuff. It's very, very important that you understand that we're always a work in progress. Everyone is the same. No one is better than anyone else. No one is even ahead of anyone else. We're all on our right path, exactly where we're supposed to be, and we're all important in that way. If you're getting some sort of ego trip of like, if I do this, I'm going to be like the best healer, and I'm going to heal the world, and I'm going to be so important, people are really going to listen to me. You have to think that all the way through. Okay, that's ego. No, I'm just going to help people as I can and do the best that I can for myself and others. Mel says, so if I still have some of the same spirits trying to put fear in me by triggering me, what's the best way to put that to rest? Get a spiritual healing session, more than one likely, because if you've been having that problem for a long time, then you probably need more than one session. I don't mean because the entities won't be gone, but you need a session for clearing, for going forward, and then you'll need a session later for going deeper. Now, between these two sessions, you'll be able to go deeper if you are able to learn the lesson and go and do it, but remember too that we're only human. So let's say you go to get a healing and they're deeply healing you, tell you what's wrong. You're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then you don't do it perfectly or you fail because you're human. We all do that. And so you go back and they're like, okay, it'll happen again. That's okay. And don't go into shame and blame for yourself. Okay, I'm trying my best. I'm doing the best I can with what I know. And I did pretty well, but then this got me. Okay, so I need to release it. I need to know what else to do, or I need to not put off that Reiki 1 class. And then you go back and then, okay, well, we're having this problem again. We're going to clear it and we'll do more up leveling. You know, each one will help you. If you have this problem for 30 years, one session is not going to clear it. It's going to help a whole lot and get you going. But it's kind of like therapy. You don't just go once. You know, you got to go maybe spiritual upkeep, maybe every 6 weeks or maybe every 3 weeks if you're, you know, you're having a big problem and you're just now working on it. And most people will give you discounts to come more often. I have all kinds of things for that, packages and things, ways to come more often. And that's what you want to do. Or maybe you need something like a monthly membership like I have, like Tag Lightworkers. It has all kinds of clearing things in it, all kinds of weekly help with coaches and like amazing mediums who are great mentors to clear you personally, give you a healing, keep you on track. And then you can go connect all these high vibrational beings of light, and you can really work on yourself, keep yourself on track, even if you just have a little bit of time or if you have a lot of time. Maybe you need something like that. Yeah, Ashley says spiritual superiority is a real thing. Even a 1% shift is a healing. Yes. And Luana says we're all worthy of higher vibration. That's true. It's very good. Well, I hope this is helpful. I don't see any new questions. If you're sitting here thinking, well, I don't have any of these skills and I'd love to do it, well, take some Reiki. Take a really good Reiki class. Look and see what the Reiki class teaches you. Look and see what you feel about the Reiki practitioner and how they do things. Maybe have a session with them so that you can see if this is like what you really think is the kind of work that you want to do. And I teach psychic Reiki healing. That's my Usui Reiki plus my psychic healing techniques, which I downloaded from Spirit. And that's what I teach. And I also teach all kinds of things in my mediumship class, of course. And then Ashley says, monthly tag pays for itself in self-love and spiritual growth, and hashtag worth it. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Shauna and Ashley and everybody who's here. Thank you all so much for coming. Send me a message anytime if you have questions, or post in the group 5D Daily. Then I can give you my opinion. You can hear lots of others and see which one feels right to you. And anyone who is a healer or channel that's watching this, you're an advanced practitioner or you want to be, then please join my 5D Daily Facebook group. It's at 5D Daily, Spiritual Healers and Higher Dimensions. So I hope I'll see you there. And thank you all who are in there right now watching. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. See you later. Bye. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you are a healer or spiritual entrepreneur, present or future, I'd like to invite you to my Facebook group, 5D Daily, Spiritual Healers and Higher Dimensions, where I'll be live for more discussion and questions on Thursdays. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'm Rachel Chamness at Sound Waves Heal.